Dear guests, dear distinguished speakers, I would like to welcome you to our first online scientific publishing course organized by DESAM Institute. Nearest University Experimental Health Sciences Research Center continues its national and international scientific activities since June 2015. In this organization, the interdisciplinary research has always been important and has continuously been encouraged. Now it was time to step out the field of health. Physicists, mathematicians, engineers, physicians, dentists, geneticists, microbiologists, anatomists, pathologists, and biochemists came together. And eventually, in January 2020, an institute was born out of this structure. DESAM Institute, whose name is known and therefore will not be written long. It became the roof of the common goal and the address of those who believe in walking the bright path of science. This new formation will continue to take an active role in research and development and postdoctoral researcher employment. DESAM Institute's 4 research laboratories and 12 research groups conduct studies in many fields such as bioinformatics, artificial intelligence, molecular medicine, regenerative medicine, reproductive medicine, and mathematical modeling in health. The mission of DESAM Institute consists of a multidisciplinary structure that covers the field of health, technology, and engineering to ensure scientific sustainability. The Institute aims to carry out research services to contribute to the developments in modern science and technologies, and to increase the recognition of international cooperation based on certificate programs and research. In addition, the Institute aims to be a bridge between health and technology areas by covering research areas such as artificial intelligence in health, 3-dimensional design and printing, 3-dimensional bioprinting, mathematical modeling in health, and genome engineering. This scientific publishing course has been organized every year since 2015, but this is the first time we are doing this online. This time we have 3 distinguished guests aboard: Professor Dr. Kerem Cankocak, Associate Professor Dr. Pinar Tulay, and Professor Dr. Jim Lamoraux. I would like to welcome our first speaker, Professor Kerem Cankocak, for his speech.
Hello, everybody. I would like to talk about how to write a scientific article. So, why do we write? Human beings, they are writing since thousands of years. We are seeing some scriptures on the Sumerian ceramic cups and so on. And scientists also write all the time. Why do we write? Because we want to express what we do. We want to publish our work in order to discuss with other experts. If we don't publish anything, our work will be useless if nobody knows about our work, so we cannot progress. And to whom we write? We should choose our target readers, because the structure of the writing, the format of the writing, the content of the writing, it depends to the readers. For different readers, you have a different kind of context. So a successful writer should be okay. In scientific publishing, what are the main important topics? What is a scientific paper? Scientific paper is a report on an original idea and original research results. If you have an original idea or if you have an original research results, you should publish a scientific paper. Scientific research contains an identification of the problem. This problem should have a big impact, at least a comparable impact in the scientific community. There are various problems, of course, in scientific area, but some of them have more impact, more effects. Some of them they are less effect. So you should choose your scientific research according to this impact parameter. And once you choose your problem, once you identified your problem, first you should scan the literature. I mean, what other people did about this problem. And you have to redefine your problem, because maybe some people have already thought about this problem, and maybe they have already did some work, and maybe they have found some results. So you should redefine the problem according to the literature scanning. And then you have to prepare to write a scientific article. In order to write a scientific article, first you have to do your research. And doing this research, of course, you have kind of filtering criteria, because you cannot publish everything. You cannot publish all of your research. You have to filter some important aspects of your research. So this is filtering. And then you have to write an introduction. I mean, as a draft for scientific article, you should start with a draft. In the draft, you should write an introduction, and then advancement, and then conclusion. This is the three big steps of a scientific article. And your results should be repeatable. I mean, your experiment or whatever you do should be repeatable experiment. There is no scientific skill. I mean, there is no mathematical skill, there is no physical skill, or there is no musical skill even. It is all hard working. Based on ethical ground, of course, I mean, without plagiarizing or something like that. If you do hard working and if you persist on your work, the result will be public. Let me quote from Einstein. I mean, most of people thinks that Einstein is a genius, but Einstein himself doesn't consider himself as a genius. He says, it is not that I am smart. It is just that I stay with problems longer. He says, I have no special talent. I am only passionately curious. And he says, a person who never made a mistake never tries something new. I mean, don't be afraid to do mistake. In the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. So a good scientist is a scientist who do many mistakes, but who works hard and who is persistent. Okay? Of course, your work should be original. It is very important. I mean, you should. There is no meaning to do the same work that people done before. And also, you have to. I mean, if you can, you should try to work interdisciplinary, because it has a big impact in scientific community. You should try to work with other areas of the scientific, I mean, with your other colleagues in the university from other departments. So you should try to work interdisciplinary. How to choose a problem? Some people, they choose popular problem. Some people, they choose classical problem. Some people, they choose very hard problems. It doesn't matter. I mean, you should don't be afraid to choose a popular problem, but it should be original. It should not be solved before, of course. And as I said, it should be there should be interaction between research areas. And the competition in scientific community is good. And also, you have to try different methods for the same achievement. I mean, if you achieve something, if you have a result with using a kind of method yourself, you try to do with a different method the same achievement. And of course, you have to aim to develop a new tool or idea or solution or a detector or anything. So you should try to do something new. These are the criteria how to choose a problem. Language, of course, it is in English, and it is good to have in mind that to be careful with the tenses that you are using. I mean, in the scientific article, people sometimes they are careless about these tenses, and then because of that, they can be rejected from the journal. So, in your article, your abstract, discussion, and general knowledge in the article should be in present tense, and the material method, results, and your own work should be in past tense. And of course, when you read many articles, you will get used about these tenses. So you can, of course, to write a good article, you have to read many articles before. What is the general structure of the paper? Of course, the first main thing is title of the paper. We will talk about it. And then abstract. After the title, it comes abstract and keywords. We will talk about it later. And there is IMRAD. This is an abbreviation. We will talk about in a few slides. And then there is acknowledgements and references, tables, and figures. So we will talk about each item. So title. The title should contain the clue about the problem. I mean, when somebody reads your title, it should reflect the problem. And it should not be too long and it should not be too short. And it should be easy to find. I mean, if somebody make a search in Google or any search machine, it is good for you that many people see your title. So it should be a good title in that sense. And it should include keyword. After the title, you will write a small abstract, like a short summary. And in the short summary, there should be no references. There should be no general conclusion. There should be no mentioning about the previous works. It should be very short, one paragraph, short summary. And then you have to choose 4 or 5 words. This should be keyword. This is because it should be easily foundable with a literature search. If somebody looks in Google looking for your, I mean, if somebody looks for the same problem or same kind of research area, your keyword should lead the potential reader to you. And this keyword should be, this 4 or 5 words should be also in the title and in the abstract. Some of them should be in title, some of them should be in abstract. And this should they should be specific terms, scientific terms. Now these keywords, they are not like general words that you are using in your article. They are specifically scientific terms. So IMRAD is an abbreviation from Franz Engelfinger, who's a new editor of Journal of Medicine, in New England Journal of Medicine. It means introduction, methods, results, and discussions. As you see, this is a cyclic. They are feedbacking each other. So introduction, feedback, methods gives results and discussions. And then discussions should be in introduction, but also discussion takes feedback from results and methods, okay? It's all in cycle. This is called IMRAD or IMRED. Okay. So what is introduction? Oh, sorry. This is stayed in Turkish. I should translate in English. Introduction should be explained. The subject should describe the problem, should describe the originality of the of the work, and so on. And then materials and method. Most important part is this material and method should be easy to follow and should be repeatable. I mean, the readers who will read your scientific article should easily repeat your work. Okay, so it should be clear, and you should use metric system. You should use the time in 24 hours, the daytime. Dates should be in day, month, years, and so on. And details are important. I mean, not too detailed, of course, but the details of your results, of your conclusion. For example, if you make an experiment, if you make, for example, a drug experiment, anything like that, the conditions and the duration of the preservation of your material used in a certain experiment should be specifically detailed so that people could easily repeat your work. Okay? Results should be original and unique. I mean, there should, in literature, first you will do a literature scanning, and then in literature there should be no same results that that you will write in your article. Okay? And the tables and figures that you put in your article should be correct and explained in the text. So you should explain in your main text about your tables and figures. And also results of the plots should be explained in the text. I mean, results of your graphics should be explained in the text. And in the discussion part, you have to talk about your purpose, your goal. And you should talk about your contribution to this area, your original contribution. And also you have to mention what other people did about the same problem before. So you should write previous results in the literature, of course. I mean, you have to write your own result, but also you have to mention other works from the literature. And if there are any counter arguments against your results, you have to make an evaluation of them. I mean, you have to mention about the counter arguments if there is any. And also you have to have suggestion for future work, because in scientific work never finish. I mean, even all the problems that are coming from thousands of years, they are not finished. There will be always more work about the same problem. There is no conclusive problem. So you have to write your suggestion, what can be done about the same problem in future. And of course, you have to make a scientific evaluation of your results. I mean, you have to judge your own results. And at the end of your article, of course, you put a bibliographia, and this bibliografia, it is good to, I mean, you of course you do it from internet, but other articles and materials in serious uh, internet sites like Google Scholar, PubMed, WOS, and so on. In social media, you should not put something from Facebook, for example. You have to put bibliography from ResearchGate or LinkedIn. And in the bibliography, you have to put your abbreviations that you have used in your article, and also you have to check results of the journal. You have to check the rules of your journal. Because each journal, you should not be selective. I mean, you have your most relevant references you have to put. Don't be subjective about these references. In the acknowledgement part, you have to thank to your founding agency, you have to thank your founding institution, you have to thank to persons and colleagues who contributed to your work. This is very important. Okay. And of course, which journal? The question. I mean, which journal you have to choose for your article? This is a big topic. Maybe we should take in another course, because it depends to your work. Of course, the main criteria is impact parameter, but there are other criteria. Of course, some journals we have very big who have very big impact parameter, which means who are mostly read in all the world. They are difficult to publish, so you have to compromise. Of course, you want to be as much as a good journal. Your article should be in good journal, but also you don't want to wait a couple of years. So you have to compromise between this impact parameter and the speed of the publishing. Okay, this is a big topic that we should make another session for that. After you submit your article, you are waiting a couple of months maybe, and then maybe you get a rejection with a comments, of course, from the people, from the editors of the article of the journal, and then you correct your article and then you submit again. So you try again. So this cycle could be a couple of times even, and then after your submission, maybe 6 months, 1 year, you have to try again and try again, and at the end, the result is publishing your article. Okay. Thanks for listening. If you have any question, I am waiting.
Thank you, Professor Cankocak, for this speech. I think we will take the questions after we are done with the presentations. So I will present our next speaker, Associate Professor Dr. Pinar Tulay. I want to invite her to the stage.
Thank you, Dr. Emir. First of all, thank you for joining us today in this first virtual conference that is designed by DESAM Institute. So Professor Kerem has already mentioned how to choose the best journal for how it is difficult to choose the best journal actually for the article, for the research projects that we are discussing or we are working on. So I will try to summarize you the best way to decide on which journal we can submit our research study. So selecting the right journal is difficult. There are thousands of academic journals that are available for publication. Therefore, to choose from all these thousands of journals is a bit challenging to decide which one is the best one for our work that we have worked on for so long. Especially as the young researchers, it becomes a bit more difficult to select from such a big pool of journals that are available. And getting published is very important, especially since it affects our careers. In majority of the universities, in order to graduate from a PhD program, we need to get our work published. If we cannot get any publication, we cannot actually graduate and get a PhD degree. Therefore, actually publishing starts from the early on stages of our career. In addition to that, if we are working in academia, if we are just working in a research lab, we always need to get publications so that we can actually continue on our research projects. It is important to get funding and continue on for the research projects that we are interested in. Therefore, it is very important to actually get published and get our work throughout the whole scientific community. Saying that, even with the experienced scientists or researchers, it can get difficult to decide on which journal we should submit our work. It may get easier for us to submit to a journal that we are familiar of, or to a journal that we have submitted previously, to submit to the same journal or similar journals over and over again. This is not always the best option, obviously. So the question of where should I submit always comes into our minds, whether we are younger scientists or whether we are experienced scientists or researchers. And it is not the easiest question to answer, but I will try to summarize what sort of factors we can take into account to choose the best journal to be able to publish our work. It is important to evaluate and search for the best journal to get published our precious work that we work so hard on getting the results for. And we want to get visibility so that we can reach to the maximum number of readers so that we can actually communicate through our research. One of the most important things in choosing the journals is finding the peer-reviewed journal. So this is the absolute aim. I will discuss with you about the peer-reviewed journals in a second, what I mean by this. There are thousands of journals that are actually peer-reviewed as well. So even though we are trying to kind of limit the search, we still have a lot to choose from. Deciding on the best option is difficult in that sense, since there are so many that are available. What should we take into consideration in the decision process? Where should we submit? The article is within the scope of the journal. I will show you some examples later on. Each journal has a different aim, different scope. Therefore, we need to be careful to submit to our work to a journal that has a similar acceptable scope. And the reputation of the journal is very important as well. What does that mean? It means that we need to think about the impact factor, as Professor Kerem was mentioning earlier. I will tell you what impact factor is. As researchers, we always talk about impact factor, but the young researchers may not be aware of what the impact factor is. And it also depends on the editorial team as well, the journal's readers, the reach, and the turnaround times. Professor Kerem also mentioned this. Turnaround times means that the time that we submit to a journal and the acceptance or the rejection in that case, which we don't want to face with, but we all do. It's that time that we call turnaround time. If we try to publish a paper, we wouldn't want to wait a year or 2 years to get published. because that may mean that there are some other researchers who are also working in the same topic that can get publication before you, which we definitely do not want something like that to happen. So the turnaround times are also very important, and we need to think about these as well. So peer review process, what do we mean by that? It determines the manuscript is worth publishing and it is well written. The manuscript is assessed by experts in the specific field that we are trying to publish our research. We call these referees or reviewers, and they check our manuscripts, our articles for relevance, novelty, and accuracy. So these experts actually do not belong to the editorial staff, but they are selected by the editorial staff. So these are, as I said before, experts in the field, and they evaluate our work. They evaluate our manuscript, starting from the abstract up until the bibliography reference section. So they are actually very important because they can actually improve our manuscripts. They evaluate it truly, and they determine if there are any missing parts, any misleading parts, and they write us a report saying that these parts are required to be corrected or they need to be edited. So it actually improves the quality of our manuscripts. They check for misleading, unclear methods or findings that they report one by one that needs to be corrected. They check the discussion as well as the introduction, of course. And if there is any parts that are missing, that if we are not discussing a recently published article that is related with our research, they point these out. They make sure that we include these as well in our discussion. And of course, they check the flow of the manuscript as well. So they truly evaluate our methodology, our writing skills, our results, everything. And they provide a report to the editorial board, to the editorial staff. The editors have the final say. So the editors may actually agree with the reviewers' comments. They may disagree with the reviewers' comments. They may think that the reviewers may not have sufficiently evaluated it and send it to another reviewer. So this process can actually take months to finalize. So at the end of the day, we can get acceptance straight without any corrections. We may get rejection, or we may get revisions that can be minor revisions or major revisions that we need to work on our manuscript again. In some cases, we may even be asked to repeat experiments. If we are working in a wet lab, we may actually go back in the lab and repeat some of the experiments or include more experiments into our research. Therefore, it is not a clear-cut thing. Following peer review process, we may need to continue on with our corrections according to the results. The editors, as I said before, may choose to agree or disagree with the reviewers' comments. We should not ever submit to a journal that doesn't have a peer review process. This is one of the main factors that determines the quality of the journal. So do not submit to your research to a journal that does not have any peer review process. Other factors that we need to consider is the impact factor. As I said before, as researchers, we always say that we want to publish our research in a high journal impact factor. What do I mean by that? What is the impact factor? It indicates the number of citations that the articles get cited by the other researchers, by the other articles. It usually evaluates between 2 to 5 years of the recent 2 to 5 years, and they divide the number of times that the article is cited by the number of articles that are citable. And at the end of the day, we get a number of the impact factor of the particular journal. It is used to assess the reputation and the quality of the journal. So as the higher the impact factor is, the more, well, the quality is improved in that case. So as the researchers, we usually aim to publish in a higher impact factor journal. I'll just give you some examples. So higher the impact factor, it's easier to get acknowledged. For example, Nature Genetics has an impact factor of 27. Nature Medicine has an impact factor of 30. Lancet has an impact factor of 59. I gave you an example over here. This is a screenshot from Google search. So you can just write impact factor Nature, just enter it. Sometimes it gives you kind of like this box over here. It says Nature impact factor 43. You can also find this on the journal's websites. So if I go onto Nature's website and I find the journal metrics, it tells you actually the 2-year impact, 5-year impact, etc. So it actually gives you the impact factor in each website. So these are, I have given you some examples that are high journal impact factors. And there are some more other journals that are more specialized that has lower impact factor, but they are actually very prestigious in specific fields, such as European Journal of Human Genetics. It has an impact factor of 4.349. As you can see, it's not 59, it's not 30, but it is very prestigious in the field of human genetics, medical genetics, etc. Same as British Journal of Cancer, it has an impact factor of 5.416, but again, it's more specialized and it is very prestigious journal as well. So this brings us to the next question. Should we go for a higher impact factor journal, or should we try to publish in a more specialized journal with a lower factor? This question actually comes up quite often in the scientific researcher community. It's a common discussion. Some researchers prefer to publish in a specialized journal with targeted readers. As I said before, with the specialized journals, it is more focused to a specific topic. Therefore, the readers are more specific, the editors are more specific to a particular topic, and therefore the reviewers of the articles are more specific to a particular topic as well. Therefore, if we go for a specialized journal that is related with our own topic, it has a higher chance of being accepted, being published. We have a better reach by the right readers, because as I said before, since it's more specialized, the other readers, other researchers within the same field tend to read these journals more often. Therefore, it is more likely to get more citations as well. As we mentioned before, citations is important to get a higher journal impact factor, and it is also important with what we call an H index. I will explain you what H index is in the following slides. In some core subjects, specialized journals, the number of authors, researchers may also be lower compared to a bigger, broader journals. Therefore, because of this, the impact factor of the journal may be lower as well. But as I said before, they have a more targeted readers, targeted audience. Therefore, it may be easier to reach to the correct reader in this sense. Therefore, choosing a journal just based on the impact factor is not always enough, and we need to think about these more specialized journals that has a still good impact factor, maybe not as high as, for example, Nature, but they're still considered to be a good impact factor in general. For new authors, it is actually more difficult to decide on which one to choose from. Therefore, especially, for example, if there is a researcher who is trying to get published to graduate from a PhD degree, they may choose to publish at a lower impact factor journal with a fast publication time. As I said before, turnaround time, publication time is extremely important in the research, in the publications. So, how can we evaluate the reputation of a journal? First of all, if we are working in a research group, we can ask our advisors, we can ask our colleagues for recommendations. If we are a younger researcher, our supervisors, postdocs, etc., must have published previously. Therefore, we can ask for their opinion, we can go for their guidance so that we can actually be directed towards to the correct journal. We can always check the editorial board members. Usually, the prestigious journals have well-known researchers of the specific field within the editorial board members. Therefore, we can actually check the editorial board member to see if there are researchers that we are actually familiar with. And it is also important that the editors are familiar with the research topic since they choose the peer reviewers. Therefore, it could be easier to get published in a more specialized journal where at least one of the editors has some sort of background in the research field that we are trying to publish our article. Acceptance rate is another factor that we can actually check before deciding on which journal we should submit. Rejection rates in a very prestigious journals can be as high as 90%. Therefore, if we want to check these before we submit, before we decide on which journal we can submit to, it is easier for us to know these sort of rates. The manuscript can be even rejected before being sent off to the reviewers. So the editorial board may actually say that this article is not a good fit for our journal. Therefore, they can be rejected from the first stage. Average rate of rejection is about 50% in normal, it's considered to be normal for majority of the journals. And overall, it is difficult to know the exact acceptance rate. The different journals actually announce their acceptance rates by calculating differently. Some of them account the total number of manuscripts that is received. Some of them actually eliminate the first stage elimination of the editorial board, and they calculate their acceptance rates by the number of articles that is being sent off to the peer review. Therefore, the acceptance rates are a little bit evaluated differently as well. Overall, the acceptance rate actually could provide us a rough estimate of our chances of being published in the particular journal. Therefore, it is a good estimation for us to have an idea of our acceptance rates. Indexing is another factor that is very important in our fields, in the research fields. It is very important where the journal is being indexed in. There are several databases that the journals are being indexed in, and these depend on the regularity of the publications, review processes, quality of the papers that are being published in the journals reputation, and usually the well-indexed journals are more prestigious, and it improves the visibility of our manuscripts. It increases the chances of citations that we will get to our manuscripts, our articles. Therefore, it is very important that we evaluate and we check where the journals are being indexed in. Usually, if the journals are being indexed in Web of Science, Scopus, these are considered to be well indexed, good quality journals. I have mentioned you H-index previously. What is H-index and why is it important? H-index actually measures the impact of a particular researcher. With the journal impact factor, it evaluates the journal's impact factor. With the H-index, this evaluates the researcher. So it gives us a number. For example, H-index of 5. We can say that I have an H-index of 5. What does it mean? It means that the researcher has at least 5 publications that have been cited at least 5 times. Of course, as the H index is higher, that means that the researcher is publishing more, and they are being cited more. Therefore, the higher the H index, the better it is. Hundreds, 150s, 200s, etc. H index is becoming more popular, and especially some countries are actually taking into account the H index when they're accepting for different positions in the academia, in the research field. Therefore, H index has become one of the factors in our research community. How can we know where the journals are being indexed? We can check the Thomson Reuters, for example, master list, Web of Science group of websites. So we can go on the website, we can just type the journal's name or the ISSN number. You click on search, and it actually gives you the publisher, the categories, where it is being indexed, and what sort of other index categories they're being used. So we can actually use these online available websites to check the journal, where the journal is being indexed in. So it's actually a very good part that needs to be done before deciding on which journal we are going to submit our research. SCI Mago Journal Rank is another website that we can use. So in this case, it provides the scientific impact of the journal. Again, we type here the journal title or the ISSN number. It evaluates the number of citations of a journal that it receives, the prestige of the journals from where they got the citations from, the H index of the journal is being calculated by the SCI Mago as well, and the number of documents that are being published by the journal is being evaluated in this website as well, and the citations per article. So I just typed in over here one of the journal names, and this is what it gives us. For example, Nature. The H index of Nature is 1,159. It tells us the citations that is being evaluated yearly, and it gives us different evaluation criteria on the website that we can actually come and check each journal separately. So we can use these websites if we have a journal in mind, whether one of our colleagues suggested that this is a good journal, or we find it on the website, or we have read another article on the journal, and we had decided to submit to a particular journal. What about if we don't have any idea where to submit? What can we do? Or, in other words, our article got rejected from the journals that we have submitted to, and we just don't have any idea of where else we can submit our work. What can we do at this stage? We can use journal finders. Different publishers have these journal finders that we can use that can help us to pick the correct journal for us, or the best match for our work. For example, Elsevier is one of the publishing groups. They have many different journals within them. They have a journal finder. Journal finders are specific to each publishing group. So if we are using Elsevier's journal finder, that would mean that it will evaluate the journals within Elsevier. If you're planning to submit with one of the Elsevier's journals, then you can use its journal finder. What you do within this thing is you give the title of your article, the abstract of your article, and it evaluates, it scans through its journals, and it finds the best match that fits with your research. And it gives you the impact factor of that journal, the acceptance rates, the acceptance time, etc. This is how it looks like. So you can write the paper title, the abstract. You can refine your search as well. You can include other things as well. I have just plugged in one of my previous articles, and it listed me multiple possible journals that I can submit to. For example, Reproductive Biomedicine Online. It gives me the site score. It gives me the impact factor. The acceptance rate is about 20% for this journal. Time for the first decision, whether it's rejected, it can be accepted with minor, major revisions, etc., is 4 weeks. And the total time of publication is listed here, which is about 17 weeks for this particular journal. And it has listed me 50 journals that matches with my topic. Therefore, I can go through these and select one of these journals to submit my paper. And as I said before, these are specific for each publishing group. Springer Nature is another one. I have just put you here the example of how the website looks. Again, it's very similar. Manuscript title, text. You can pick the subject area. As I said before, you can refine your search. For example, you can say that I don't want to submit to a journal that has lower impact factor than 5, etc. So you can actually write these parts as well, fill these parts in as well, and you can refine your search option in that case. What kind of articles are likely to be published in a particular journal that you're considering to submit? How can we know whether or not we have any chance of being published in the journal that we want to submit? One obvious option is read previously published papers. If they're similar with our research, then we have a higher chance of being published. We can scan through the papers within the last few years, last year. Similarly, the journals can be searched that publish research articles similar to ours. The journal finder is another example of these. And we can focus to a particular topic that can fall into a specialized publication that could increase the acceptance rates of our paper. The readers can be maximized, as we discussed before, in a more specialized journal. If the article is published in the right specialized journal, they have a higher percentage of subscribers that are more likely to be interested in our research area. One of the important things before submission is to check for the aims and scope of the journal. Again, I gave the example of Nature. This is from Nature's website. If you go to Nature's website, you can click on the About the Journal parts, and you can read the aims and the scope. Even if your research is perfect, it's breakthrough research, if it does not follow the scope, the aim of the journal, it will get rejected. So it will be unnecessary loss of time, motivation. Therefore, reading the aims and scope or about the journal section is extremely important. Some journals may not accept case reports. If you're trying to publish a case report, do not go ahead and submit to that particular journal because it's not going to get accepted. You will lose time and it will be unnecessary. If you still have any doubts, you can look through the abstracts. As we mentioned before, you can read previously published papers, you can look through table of contents, and you can have a better idea whether or not this particular journal is the best fit for your research. And this will help in the decision of whether or not this journal is the right one for submission. Author guidelines, Professor Kerem also mentioned about this. This is very important because this will actually tell us the type of the article that they accept. Similarly, case report example that I have just given you. It will tell us the article types, the journal's preferred layout, word limits, referencing style, etc. So we have to make sure that we actually go through the author's guidelines on the journal's website as well. And it will tell us if there is any submission fee or article processing charges there is. This is just an example. So if you go onto website, you can find about the journal, author information, etc. And you can actually read through all these before deciding on whether or not this journal is the best fit for your publication. I want to take a couple of minutes to talk about predatory publishers. So these journals is not legit. So they may have a perfectly good websites that look like very good journals, but they're not actually legit websites. These publishers approach to the authors by checking recently published papers using websites such as Google Scholar, academia.edu, and they approach to the researchers asking for publications. They can either send an email as call for papers, or they can send personalized emails saying that we have read your recent research on this. Could you please contribute to our journal? Latest issue, for example. We have to be very careful with these. Usually, these do not have ISSN or DOI numbers, so this can give us a hint that these are not legit publishers. So we can actually check these. We can check the email IDs that they send us the emails from. And usually, the journal scope is very broad with these predatory publishers. Usually, peer-reviewed journals have a more specific focus. Therefore, we can actually read through their scope and make sure that they have a more focused scopes. And usually, the journal is not indexed. As we said before, the quality, the prestige of the journal is associated with the indexing factors. So, one of the most important things is during our submission process, do not submit to more than one journal at the same time. It's not ethically correct, and we can only submit to one journal at a time. If the article gets rejected, then we can submit to another journal, but not before. We cannot submit to 2 journals at the same time. Some journals have transfer options in case our article gets rejected, so they can get resubmitted kind of automatically within the same publishing group. So to sum up, make sure that your paper fits with the scope of the journal so that you eliminate unnecessary loss of time with the rejection. Assess the credentials of the journal or the publisher. Browse the content that they publish for quality, relevance of your own research, and check the quality of their websites for predatory publishers. Check what tools and services they offer to the authors, such as editing, English editing, etc. Submit the article to one journal at a time. As I said before, it's not ethically correct to submit to multiple journals at the same time. So I would like to end my talk here. Thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, this is my email address. You can reach me through email anytime.
Thank you, Dr. Pinar Tulay, for this beautiful presentation. I want to remind all our online viewers and researchers that you can ask questions from the comment sessions on the YouTube. So we will pass those questions to our speakers. Also, the presentations used in this session will be posted on our DESAM Institute's website, so you can review them later. Thank you, Ms. Pinar Tulay, and I want to pass the word to distinguished Professor Jim Lamoraux for his next presentation. I think we have to unmute Jim. I want to thank our viewers for the nice comments in the YouTube comment section. Thank you very much. Jim, we are ready for you.
Well, Tuesday the 18th, would that be good?
Hello.
Yes, Jim, you are online and live.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Nice and clear.
Is that better?
Okay.
Is that better?
So I will send an
Yes,
invite
we see you.
and
Okay.
And hear you.
Good.
then we can
So,
change it. We can move it
well, it's a pleasure to be with everybody today. Dilber was saying that there are 200 people in the audience, so or that's what you were expecting. So I wore my tie today. It's a world tie, and it makes me feel like I'm closer to you anyway. So,
Bye, everybody.
all right. I'll be speaking to you on how to get your article accepted from an editor's point of view. I'm sorry I missed the earlier part to tie in more specifically, but maybe at the end we can have some discussion to that. So let's see. Can we expand that? How do we need to share, make that bigger? Okay. All right. Anyway, Springer is, I'm editor for Environmental Earth Sciences, Carbonates and Evaporites, and Sustainable Water Resources Management. And so these are all possible journals to get your articles published in. And it helps for the authors to understand the process that their paper goes through. And we'll touch on that while we're in this talk. So, but to begin with, let me tell you what a little bit about Springer. Springer's been in about 5 years ago, Springer merged with Macmillan, and they put the Springer logo with the Nature, which was the best known journal of Macmillan. And so now we're known as Springer Nature. And Springer's been in business for 175 years, and we have 13,000 employees in over 50 countries worldwide, published 3,000 journals and 12,000 books annually. And we're leading publisher by a number of titles, so you can see those here. Over the time, we've published a number of Nobel Prize winners. Here's some of those, and so if there are any people that are looking to win a Nobel Prize, we're a good place to come and publish your work. So. And we publish in all different kinds of fields: mathematics, chemistry, life sciences, medicine. I understand a lot of you are in the medical field, and so please keep us in mind as we go along. So how do I get to the next? There we go. All right, so we'll cover the logical manuscript structure, how to prepare a manuscript, and so you need to make sure that remember you're not only you're writing for an audience, but before that you're writing for the editor so that he or she understands. Can you make that bigger? Understands why your article should be published. And there are three key things: the title, the abstract, and the introduction that your readers and the editors are going to look at first to see if they're going to whether your article is interesting enough to be published. So, and first of all, in the introduction, you want to tell why your study needs to be done, to introduce the topic, and look at it whether it's on a worldwide or of regional relevance, and Then you also need to know what is known about the topic. And let's see. What is known about the topic? You want to include up-to-date studies and let's see. Can you hear me all right? All right. So anyway, you want to look at the initial observations, the characterization of these observations, and the applications or the usefulness in the field. And remember, you're presenting this first to the editor before it ever gets out to your audience. So. All right. So you want to summarize how your study contributes to the field. Summarize what you did. Begin with the research problem. Briefly describe the study design and summarize the key findings. So you want to interpret your findings, similarities and differences, unexpected negative results, and why it's important to the field. So remember, these are the things that you want to keep in mind as far as your study and to make sure that I don't know why this isn't advancing. Can you advance it? All right. So you want to logically link your ideas, answer the 4 quick key questions that we've just talked about. Why the study needs to be done, what you did, what you found, and how your study will advance the field. And actually, these days, when we go to a conference, Springer has actually had receptions for authors so that it helps you learn how to tell the story about your work. And so to that extent, that's one thing to keep in mind. Remember, you're telling a story to your audience. So can you go to the next slide? There we go. All right. As far as your titles, you want to get your readers' attention, because if they don't, if they aren't still interested after your title, then they won't read the rest of your paper. So keep in mind what's important, the keywords for indexing, and the conciseness. Keep it to 20 words. And so that's the title is very important, because that is the first thing that the audience sees. So, can we go to the next slide? There we go. While I was in this other meeting, I did see that Pinar was talking about aims and scope, and this is one of the key things that is very important, and I'll repeat it several times during the talk. But you need to look at the aims and scope of the journal and how it relates to your topic, the significance of your study as far as the results, and the relevance of your study. Make sure your writing is clear. Readers will not continue to read the rest of the paper if the abstract is not written well. This is particularly true for editors and reviewers, because these days the rejection rate for our journals are much higher than they used to be. And one of the reasons is that the reviewer is looking at it from a technical point of view. And to that extent, then you want to make it as easy as possible for him or her to read it. And to that extent, you want to have an English speaker review your paper before you submit it, so that the reviewer can concentrate on the technical aspect. So, all right, go ahead. Can you go to the next one? All right, as far as publication goals, you want to take a look and see what are your goals. Do you want to publish quickly and have an impact in the field? Or do you want to, and to do that, you want to choose the most appropriate journal, and you want to communicate the study's relevance to the journal editor. So these are important things to keep in mind. And again, continue to refer to your aims and scope. There's also an instructions to authors in each journal. And if you want to publish your article rapidly, then the more you follow the instructions to authors, the more rapidly your study is going to be published. All right. As far as choosing a journal, you want to talk to colleagues, websites of research groups and researchers working in your topic area. You want to follow up references in the research paper. Use digital libraries that are available easily these days. Check the publisher sites. You can often find useful information there for author section. And one of the key things is to make sure you use the expertise of your library staff. The librarians can help you focus your research, and to that extent, then it makes it a much more narrow way to make sure you're getting the best information, and at the same time focusing on the talk that your paper you're writing. All right, the next one. As far as submitting, you need to, can you make the slide larger? You want to read the formatting, get guidelines for the journal very carefully and ensure that you conform closely to these. Never submit your paper to more than one journal at the same time. Publishing integrity is important. If you receive reviewer comments for resubmissions, act on them, and don't be disheartened if you receive a rejection. It may be the journal you submitted to simply has a higher rejection rate, which, as I said, is one of the things that is our rejection rate now is about 60%. So you want to make sure that you follow those aims and scope, and that you follow the instructions to authors, and so that your paper won't be rejected. So, all right. You want to make the best first impression for the journal editors. You want to talk about the significance and relevance of the study, and to show that it's suitable to be published by their journal. And to that extent, you want to answer the questions as to whether it's interesting to their readers and whether the writing style is clear and concise. The next one. All right, so you want to introduce your manuscript, which we've talked about, why the study is important, give a brief background and research the problems and aims, what you found, the study design, one or two key findings, why suitable for the journal, conclusions and interest to your readership, and then finally anything include or exclude reviewers, and look at the publication ethics. We were talking about that earlier, and to that extent, it's in fact, I was just on the phone with Springer. We have a monthly virtual meeting with our editor from Springer in Heidelberg, Germany, and the other editors of the journal. And one of the key things is, one, you don't want to plagiarize, and secondly, you don't want to have a duplicate publication out there, and because these can very much affect your career. If you do it too often, then Springer could blacklist you and take you off possible being published in their journal again. So here we look at the publication ethics, make sure it's original and unpublished, not submitted to other journals, and authors agree on paper and journal. One of the things that takes up a lot of time as far as getting your article published these days is the fact that oftentimes there are several authors, of course, and they'll change the order of the authors. They'll want to add or subtract an author. And every time you do this, nowadays you have to put in writing why you're doing it, and then it has to go back to the editor. So it delays the process of getting your paper published. So Some of these things include scientific misconduct, fabrication of results, publication misconduct, the plagiarism. The paper must be original to the authors. You don't want duplicates out there. Some people these days, we call it salami publishing, where people actually will pull several wording from several different papers and put them together into one casing like a salami. And this is certainly something you don't want to do. Another thing is to give appropriate acknowledgement of prior research and researchers and the appropriate identification of all co-authors. These people have put a lot of time and effort in there, and so you want to make sure that you give them credit and that you do that up front. This should be a team effort if there are co-authors, and you want to make sure that everybody is acknowledged. So, okay, the next one. All right, to help you understand what an editor and a reviewer goes through, here's a chart, and I think it will help, particularly for the younger people in the audience. First of all, you submit your manuscript, and we see whether it meets the basic requirements. And if it does, then it's assigned to the reviewers. And Springer requires that at least 2 reviewers for each article. And based on that, its evaluations and recommendations are made. And those can include minor revision, major revision, reject and resubmit, or totally reject outright. So, and then you'll get those comments back from the reviewer, and it's up to you to assess those comments, and then based on that to respond to those comments. And at that point, a decision is made. And if you do decide to revise it, then it will go back out to hopefully the same reviewers or other reviewers if those reviewers aren't willing to do that. So, all right, the next slide, please. You want to make sure that in your response letter, one of the most common mistakes is that you only state the revision. Make sure that you only state the revisions that have been done and not what the revisions were. Journal editors are very busy, and not only the editors, but the reviewers. So you want to make the revisions easier to review. You want to basically, briefly state what was revised. Always refer to the page and line numbers. And in the manuscript, highlight the revised text. So all of these things are to help you get your paper processed more rapidly, and at the same time to help you understand what the editor's process is in this. So the next slide. All right, as far as what the journal editors are looking for, they want to know why you agree or disagree and support your disagreement with evidence. State new experiments, how the text was revised and the figures, and then tell where they can be found, the page and line numbers and updated figure numbers. So, all right, the next one. Yeah, there we go. All right, just about every manuscript requires revision, so don't be upset if your paper does require revision. And please keep in mind that the editors and reviewers mean to help you improve your article, and do not be offended by the comments that you get back. So these people are taking time out of their busy schedule to review your paper, and so you need to keep that in mind as well. And even though you get a minor revision, it does not necessarily guarantee acceptance after revision. Do not count on acceptance, but address all the comments very carefully. When you're revising the manuscript, make sure you address all the parts the reviewers point out and respond to the comments. Okay, next one. Now, as I said, that the rejection rate is increasing, and ours is up to about 60% now, and so you may get a rejection on your paper. But don't be totally upset. Look at why it's rejected. Why it may be of limited interest. The paper's of routine significance of well-known methods. It presents an incremental advance or is limited in scope. The novelty and significance are not immediately evident or sufficiently well justified. Submission of paper is clearly out of scope of the journal. Again, that's one of the things that I've stressed as we go along. Failure to format the paper according to the guidelines for authors. Again, look at the instructions to author. It'll shorten your process. It's inappropriate or no suggestive reviewers. In our journal, we don't have suggestive reviewers unless after going through our database of reviewers, then we can't find an appropriate one. Then we might ask you to submit a reviewer. You didn't make an adequate response to what the reviewer said. Inadequate standard of English. Again, that can get your paper rejected up front without even being considered. And then resubmission of rejected manuscripts without revision. I mean, as I said, the editors and the reviewers have taken a lot out of their own time to review your paper, and they don't do it just for nothing. So you need to take advantage of that. So, all right, the next one. So earlier I went through the process with you. So here's once it's accepted, you can track it all the way through. And here's the way that happens. Springer has an article tracking guide that will take you through all the different steps and include type setting, article proofs. If you get a proof, make sure you turn it around very rapidly. That's going to help you get your papers published sooner. These days we use continuous article publishing, which is where it's published online as soon as it's been reviewed and accepted, and then later on it will be published in print. So, but this has been a big help to get people's papers online and into the field very rapidly. So, okay, next one. As far as the impact factor, one of the things that we covered in our meeting this morning was the impact factor for environmental earth sciences, and it has gone up from 1.8 to 2.3 now. So that's a significant increase, and we're very excited about that. And of course, our authors will be as well. So, but the impact factor is not the only thing that to keep in mind. These days, we have a new DORA agreement, which actually looks at several different factors, so that you actually look more at the paper itself and the quality of it, as opposed just to the impact factor. So that's one thing to keep in mind. So there is a Springer Author Academy, such that you can go online to www.springer.com, and it'll take you through each step of what I've been telling you today and more. And it's very helpful in that regard. So take advantage of that as well. And so next one, next slide. All right, some of the benefits of this are that key skills and career development for researchers, refine the writing skills and build confidence writing for a top journal, gain clarity on the editorial processes at top journals, often seen as a black box. That's why I've tried to go through this process with you, so you know better how to work with editors and when submitting a paper or completing a review, and learn about the issues such as the reproducibility of research and using research metrics responsibly. So I think that pretty much wraps up our paper, and if I can either answer questions now or later on, if you'd like to send me a question or so, I'd be happy to answer you that way. So, and oftentimes, well, my times in Cyprus in the past, I've enjoyed very much working with everybody, and it does help to be able to respond in person to people's questions. And but in this time, we'll use emails and virtual communications. So, but thank you very much.
Question from the audience. Mrs. Injanbek asks, dear professor, could not a more transparent process be followed when the publications are rejected?
Well, I don't know. It's pretty transparent right now, I believe. I mean, I've gone through the different steps that are involved in trying to keep the author involved all the way along. And I guess the only way to be more transparent would be to send in specific questions about it if you have. But to that extent, we've tried to streamline this thing so that we can get your paper processed as rapidly as possible. So, but yeah, you can always email and we can try to explain and better. So, all right.
Thank you very much. Can I have all the speakers on the stage, please? Another question to Associate Professor Tulay. Do you think that journal finders tend to show the journals which are more open access and make the researchers, authors pay? Do you think that they show those journals on the top of the searches?
Thank you, Dr. Emil. Actually, not really, because the one example that I gave you, all the first 5 journals that they listed, none of them were open access only. Of course, they do have a choice that you can choose open access option, but they don't necessarily are only open access. So I actually published in one of those journals before, and 2 of those journals actually. None of them are asking for any publication fee or anything like that. So I don't think that they tend to guide you towards an open access.
Thank you very much.
I guess it also depends on which finder you use as well. I gave the example of Elsevier, Springer, and these are very well-known publishing groups. So if we do go for other predatory kind of things, I guess that's definitely guiding us towards the open access, but not the well-established ones. I don't think that that would be the case in those.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to ask all our speakers for the final remarks that they may have regarding this session, or any comments or any predictions for the future. It's the first time we are doing this online, so we may have experienced some technical problems, but I think we have overcame them very quickly. So if you have any specific remarks regarding these sessions or regarding your presentations, you are welcome.
I think we're going through a very difficult time for the publishing business specifically, but of course, with the pandemic and everything else, it's slowed down the process. So I think, remember that the editors and the reviewers are taking their time to help you, and we are here to help you, and we'd like very much to publish your journals. We do publish open access in the journals that I mentioned that I work with, and and if you have questions, in addition to the tracking process and everything, feel free to get in touch with us.
Thank you very much, Professor Lamoraux. Before closing up, I think we have no more questions. Before closing up, I want to invite dear Evren Maner to the stage, because he was the guy who made this all live session possible for us.
Okay.
Evren, do you have any word for us?
Okay, thank you very much. It was a lovely course. First time I'm online, actually. Thank you for inviting me. And on the other hand, also I'm writing my thesis and articles, and it is very important to know which one to publish and which one to apply. Especially, thank you, Associate Professor Pinar and Mr. Jem Lamoraux. Thank you very much. I really like your tie. Perfect decoration. The color combination is lovely. And I wish all the health and happiness and inspiration for all of us during this COVID-19 madness. And thank you very much. And for our audience also, we are receiving beautiful comments from different countries. So actually we are entering a very interesting world at the moment that actually we can combine all together for a better future. What do you think, Mr. Lamoraux?
Yes, I agree with you. And it's going to take a lot of concerted effort to continue to provide a forum for our authors and to the scientific community. It's a very difficult time, and we'll all have to work together to do that, and we need to stay safe and healthy in the process. So I hope everybody does that and continues to do that.
Also, as a filmmaker, I'm experiencing a very new platform and online television channel. And Timmy Kelvin is asking, if you want to be an editor or a reviewer, what do you need?
Well, it helps if you've well, you can apply to be a reviewer to the journal, and you send in your CV, and then the more that you hopefully then you would become a reviewer, and then you build up your record so that after several reviews we can look to see how rapidly you review things and what kind of job you did and so forth. And after that, then we can consider including you on the editorial board. And after you're on the editorial board for a while and you continue to do a good job, then the next step up would be an associate editor. And those associate editors cover specific fields. And so depending on your field and whether we have a need for that, then you could look at that. So that's sort of the process that you would go through.
And Timmy Kelvin, I will be publishing his full name for you also. You can find Jim Lamoraux. Thank you very much for being our students, and you are living the advantage of the nearest university at the moment. So if there's no next questions, we are about to complete our 1.5 hour online. And there's a last, Kimi asks, sorry, Kimi, you ask one more time, but I will. And thank you for all. There are beautiful comments we are receiving. And great job, DESAM. We are very proud of DESAM. Sorry, it's okay. Thank you very much for all golden information. Adnan Alparslan, thank you. Thanks for the wonderful presentation. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So much thanks. It's more than a wedding. Thank you, Mr. James.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I think Mr. Kerem, Professor Dr. Kerem having connection issues. We lost him. That was actually, he was having a very bad connection there.
No, I am listening.
Yeah.
He's back.
Oh, he's here. So we can't see you. Can you open your camera?
There's a problem with my camera, but I am listening.
Okay. Would you like to say something before we close out?
Sorry,
So
did
would
you
you
say something to me?
Yeah. Would you like to say something before we close
Okay,
the
no,
program?
thanks for everything. It's okay.
Okay,
All right.
I would like to say that, especially to the young researchers, do not get discouraged at the moment, especially if you're working in a wet lab or if you cannot go to your research lab, etc. Hang in there, read, write, and hopefully everything will get back to normalish and we can continue on with the research projects quite soon, hopefully. And do not get discouraged if you get rejections. Keep trying, don't lose hope, and keep up the good work.
I'll echo that.
My specialty thesis was rejected 7 times until it got published.
You're very persistent.
And it's the most valuable work for me, by the way, until this time. Thank you very much, all of you. It was a lovely session with a lot of feedback. I hope to see you in the next virtual meeting in future. Thank you very much.
Thank